So the Whitney Museum of American Art was founded by artist and philanthropist Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney in 1930, which was then a new and radical mandate to focus exclusively on the art and artists of the United States. For over 80 years, the Whitney has carried on that vision as the home of the defining collection of modern and contemporary American art with a special focus on championing the work of living artists. But as the collection has grown and artworks have taken on a new size, that home has changed, and the museum has moved several times during its history, from Greenwich Village to Midtown to the Upper East Side, and most recently to the Meatpacking District just south of the High Line Elevated Park in 2015. As Flora Miller Biddle, granddaughter of museum founder Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, best said it, the Whitney is an idea, not a building. This notion was our guiding light during the new building project and move. Despite it being a time of great transition for the institution, we embrace the same core values that we've had since the museum's inception, to challenge the best of American art and serve a wide variety of audiences in celebration of its complexity and diversity. From 2011, when we broke ground, all the way to the close of our Breuer building in 2014 and the subsequent opening downtown in 2015, we had to work to broaden awareness of the Whitney's program and mission, as well as get the new building on people's radar and get them excited about the move. This last point should be underlined. When we surveyed visitors during the Jeff Koons retrospective, our final exhibition at the Breuer building, we found that only 64% of them had any awareness about our impending move. We really had to move the dial. Social was integral to achieving that objective in that it provided our audiences with a place for an ongoing dialogue around the project and the museum's mission more broadly, particularly when we went on our 6-month hiatus. So let's start at the beginning. In May 2011, we broke ground at our new building site, but the museum remained operational uptown for the majority of our new building project. Because of this, we were very, very conscious to not assert a false dichotomy between the old and new Whitney. So we introduced the hashtag Future Whitney in 2013, which allowed us to aggregate new building content without encroaching on programming outreach efforts, and it also provided our audiences with a way to talk about the project, a key objective. For the next 2 years, we kept our social followers up to date, tweeting hard hat tours, giving sneak peeks of building features like our wonderful flood mitigation system. And because of a lot of this early content didn't live on our website or get surfaced publicly other than social, we really leaned into Twitter and Instagram, which allowed us to kind of provide ad hoc on-the-go updates. In October 2014, we ended our tenure at the Breuer building with a 36-hour-long viewing of our celebrated Jeff Koons retrospective. And the earned media impressions that it generated really gave us a sense of kind of the buzz we would experience at opening. But I think on a more institutional level, also forced us to be more open to the idea of visitors engaging with social media in the galleries. Beyond sharing the final hours at the building, we also introduced the concept of hashtag New Whitney, which we embraced once we closed the Breuer building in kind of a cheeky analog way. We asked visitors to write a postcard to their future selves describing what they would do at the New Whitney, and we got hundreds of responses and mailed those out in advance of opening. So my boss said this was a really sad picture, but I wanted it to be that way just to kind of emphasize the 6-month hiatus that we went on. So from November 2014 through April 2015, the programming at the Whitney lessened significantly and no works of art were on view. So social was instrumental in encouraging a personal, informative, and friendly relationship with our audiences in order to foster and sustain kind of the connections that they already have with us as we look towards our opening in May. Most of our content wasn't call to action based, but rather focused on building awareness and keeping the museum top of mind for our followers. Instagram was especially essential, but we worked to leverage all of our channels to reach new audiences and also continue engagement with our brand. So during the hiatus, we surfaced our institutional history and really tried hard to situate the move downtown within the larger, more robust narrative of the museum. So we mined our archives to find great photos. This one is my favorite, of a dog during the Save the Calder Circus campaign in the 80s. We surfaced content from past exhibitions, like our seminal Black Male exhibition, and we also really leaned into the online collection, which as of November of 2014 gave an entry for every work in our collection. And it was also the focus of the inaugural exhibition, so it gave us a way to tease that out. We also worked really hard to put a human face on the institution. We launched Whitney Stories, a series of 15 short films, which we released over the course of 2 years on Whitney.org and social, focusing on individuals and hearing the story of the institution through their experiences. We let various members of our staff take over our Instagram, and not just curatorial, but people from membership, education, etc. And we regularly featured our staff members. So whether it was our lead guard, Martha, trying on her new outfit, her new uniform for the new Whitney, or unpacking in our offices. And of course, we didn't neglect the building. While we felt it was essential for people to experience a new Whitney with art in it, it didn't stop us from sharing updates about our new home and community. But it wasn't all sunshine. We also had a lot of people talking, and no matter how much you try and lead a dialogue around a project, any project, people on social are gonna have opinions and talk and share. I thought this was a great example. This is when Jerry Saltz kind of solicited feedback on our beautiful facade, before opening. While some of the comments were kind of less than favorable, I don't know if you can read it, but someone says hospice, condos, a power plant. Listening to the social conversation really helped kind of guide both our efforts online and in real life. What's resonating with people? What are our followers thinking? Social is a great way to kind of get a better sense of your growing audience and how your ever-evolving digital audiences, and listening into them is an important part of the project. So opening came before we knew it, and it's worth noting that the Whitney only had 2 dedicated staff members in the entire marketing department during this time, including me. So what that did allow was that we had a really small team. So social was always part of the conversation, and it allowed our efforts to really be in sync. So in late April, we made it a point to saturate the local market with placements in out-of-home, print, and digital, and we leveraged imagery we shot for the print and outdoor campaigns to run paid social campaigns. We also made it a point to include #NewWhitney everywhere, including the stairs of our local subway station. By doing this and opening the entire museum to visitor photography, we saw an explosion of visitor-created content and garnered several stories in media outlets proclaiming the Whitney the Instagram of museums. In short order, the New Whitney hashtag went from a measly 200 public posts on Instagram to tens of thousands across all social channels. So the opening event spanned several weeks, and the majority were not open to the public. We used social to share these tentpole moments with our followers, from the press preview to artist party to the dedication with Michelle Obama. We also invited influencers to many of these events in order to kind of encourage and foster authentic relationships between the museum and their networks. And we garnered 5 million additional impressions alone just during the press preview because of those efforts. The opening saw tremendous press coverage, including cover stories in the New York Times and New York Magazine, and we disseminated these across to amplify their reach. And we found that those efforts were particularly successful on Facebook and Twitter. The importance of selecting the right hashtag, I think, is best seen here. Hashtags obviously need to be concise and unique and really feel natural. And I think the proof is in the pudding with #NewWhitney. Nearly every article and press coverage that happened over the course of opening use that phrase, and so they kind of became part of the conversation that we had already begun in 2014. So partnerships were an essential aspect of the project, and we made sure that they always had a life on social. So we leveraged tremendous press coverage to work with the New Yorker and New York Magazine to host exclusive tours with Peter Sheldal and Jerry Saltz. And so we got coverage on those publications channels, and we also housed that content on our own channels. We also did a takeover of CBS this morning's Instagram the week of opening, which really helped disseminate our message to the local market. And we leveraged existing corporate partnerships. So for example, we worked with Bloomingdale's to create Whitney shopping bags, which were out in market the month leading up to opening. So not only did we get our artwork out on the streets of New York, but we also got on the retailer's Instagram. We also collaborated in probably my favorite event of opening with the Empire State Building to do a light show the night of opening. And what was amazing was there was this great synergy because our opening day also happened to be the 84th anniversary of the Empire State Building. So we shared that on their channel. They have a tremendous audience, and there's certainly some overlap, but it did feel like it was a new, more local audience to get our message out to. So since opening, the museum's social channels have grown 75% to a cumulatively 1.8 million users. And we've similarly seen our on-site visitorship more than triple our annual numbers at the Breuer Building. Overall, it was a success, but we learned a ton along the way too, and I think these takeaways probably speak to launching any type of project. So I'm going to end where I began with the quote, "The Whitney is an idea, not a building." I think our main takeaway in learning was to stay true to who you are. Be authentic, especially on social. If it feels weird or your gut is saying it's not right, it probably isn't. Creatively repurpose. There is nothing more stressful and busy than an opening, whether that's an exhibition or a new building. So use what you have. Put a new spin on old content, share a new perspective on an old program, mine your archives, and make sure that interdepartmental collaborations are efficient and realistic. Work closely with your PR and communications team to make sure that the institution is on message and make sure that everyone is telling the same story. Be open, listen, and stay on brand. Give your audiences a way to participate in the dialogue. Provide hashtags in the galleries and on other materials. Ask questions and encourage photography and sharing of experiences. Along those same lines, go with the flow. Probably the most important takeaway that I can share with you today. I think with a few exceptions, everyone at the Whitney had never opened a new building before. At a certain point, managing an opening is just like being on a roller coaster, cranking up a really steep hill. At a certain point, momentum takes over, and you just have to hold on for dear life. So I end with this work that's actually in our lobby by Maurizio Cattelan that's quoting the great Nelson Mandela. It's a very apt sentiment, I feel like, for this presentation. Thank you.
Ooh, okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I am Katie Booth, and I am from SFMOMA. Let's jump right in. So this beautiful building is the new SFMOMA. We reopened on May 14th as one of the largest modern and contemporary art museums in the country, welcoming visitors 18 and under for free every single day. A commitment to serving over 50,000 school children in its first year, and an amazing partnership with the Fisher Collection for a 100-year loan of 1,200 of some of the most incredible pieces you've ever seen. And all of this came together after a 3-year closure. 3 years. It's a long time. It's a really long time. So what exactly happened during that 3-year closure? Well, in short, we went through a complete rebranding from the ground up. From a website redesign to a more open and welcoming graphic identity, the new SFMOMA wanted to sort of shed these previous perceptions of being an elitist institution that's only for a certain few, which some modern and contemporary art museums can fall victim to. So now what we want to project is the fact that it's all about the visitor. I mean, I think this shift, even in our logo, is really indicative of where we wanted to go. And armed with these new brand principles, being surprising, welcoming, boundaryless, illuminating, participatory, open, and for our time. Our social strategy needed to, especially during the closure, engage existing audiences while also reaching out to new ones with no building and no collection to speak of to be able to show, and no programming. So what were we supposed to do? Our solution was to think outside the building. So I've broken down the strategy into roughly 3 phases. The timeline of these are not concrete, much like everything with social media. But phase 1 for pre-opening is sort of defined by our community. During phase 1, SFMOMA really wanted to connect with the community's interest in the arts more generally rather than specifically connected to us. You cannot talk about yourself for 3 years and expect people to not be over it very quickly, as we've heard from both of our incredible presenters. So this is a sentiment that I cannot agree with enough. So it was really important for SFMOMA to engage with the community, and I'll talk about that in a second. Phase 2, during opening, we wanted to transition into the new SFMOMA, popular hashtag. The new SFMOMA, we wanted to start sharing tidbits about ourselves, about the construction, the collection, and building that excitement, going up the roller coaster before we fell down onto the other side after opening. And then phase 3 was really about the community that we had, the interest that we had garnered, and the connections that we had made with people actually in the new space. That was really important. That cultivation that we had gone through in phase 1, while really actively listening to our visitors and how they're experiencing the new SFMOMA. So during phase one, SFMOMA went on the go. Some of you might have remembered this. If you didn't, what this included were jointly organized museum exhibitions and outdoor site-specific installations. It was a dedicated period of time to engage in a dialogue with our cultural partners all over the Bay Area. So these are two examples of some of the pieces that were up. We wanted to stay in people's minds and we wanted to stay fresh without having a building to speak of. So during phase one of the most popular campaigns that we did was the Play Artfully campaign. This campaign was really, these are a lot of the things that we utilized and talked about during opening, and I wish I could go through them all, but this is something that I really wanted to highlight due to its success. So this campaign focused on this idea of playfulness and generosity with these really fun, shareable games that inspired people's individual creativity. So it not only was it wasn't necessarily about connecting the visitor to us, it was about the visitor connecting with themselves and with their capabilities. So the success of the campaign itself was because we were not talking about ourselves, which I know I keep repeating, but it's incredibly important. So the other really amazing part of this is the user-generated content that came out of this campaign fed back into this engagement loop. And so as people were posting and as we were sharing them, it got people more and more excited and it kept growing because these were, originally they were coming out one every other day, and then that was a lot of work, so then it shifted to once or twice a week, and these were disseminated through Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitter, all monitored through the Play Artfully hashtag, which was short and quick and easy and worked really well. So at the end of the campaign, it resulted in over 7 million impressions over all of our channels, with thousands of them coming in the first month. So it was really it had a steep incline. So it's a really amazing campaign that we're really proud of. So phase two, the new SFMOMA. So we're starting to bring it a little bit back to ourselves to get people excited. Who are we? With the rebranding, it was almost like a mix of the Broad and the Whitney, where this rebranding, we were essentially opening a brand new institution. We wanted to try to integrate the old and the new, but we were really, it was sort of our coming out party, so to speak. So during the new SFMOMA, phase two, something that I really like, one of our curators, Gary Garrels, of Painting and Sculpture, calls some of our beloved pieces in SFMOMA's collection destination pieces, or pieces that people are going to come to specifically to see. These include Mark Rothko, Diego and Frida, this portrait of them, Matisse's Femme au Chapeau. These are some really incredible pieces that in the new building we hung in the exact same position as we did in the old building, because we knew that people in the community who have been with us for so long were going to come back and visit them. So while also introducing these destination pieces, we wanted to include discovery pieces. So pieces not only with installation highlights, but here we have a Coons being installed, but pieces that nobody had ever heard of, but that were added to the collection through a collections campaign that we did while we were closed, which deserves its own presentation. We really wanted to foster this relationship with people that had been with us for the long haul, and while reaching out to these new audiences and getting people excited for what was new about us. So we also, rather than just talking about the collection, we included, much like the Whitney, we wanted to put a human face on it. So we included staff highlights so people could get to know, museums, something that we struggle with. Museums are made up of people. They're not these just monolithic institutions, and who are these people and what do they do? And a lot of these, Cristo here specifically has an amazing gallery called the Incline Gallery in San Francisco. Everybody has these incredible stories that we really wanted to tell because that's who makes up our museum. We also continue to call out artists from our creative community. SFMOMA has a very strong connection to living artists. And through Tumblr, we have Submission Fridays, where artists, we have about 400,000 followers on Tumblr, and artists submit their work to us. It's a channel, we have a lot of people that submit their work to us that they want it to be hung in the museum. And these two examples below, right here, are examples of things that were submitted to us that we then shared on Tumblr, which are incredible for the artist, and we get to have a platform to share these incredible things without them hanging on our wall, although I wish they could. We also needed to, much like the Whitney and the Broad, we utilized communications timelines and PR coverage about the new SFMOMA, and responded to it and asked people to interact with us regarding this PR coverage. In particular, we had a really amazing feature in Wired magazine heralding our new SFMOMA app. Like I said, everything was built from the ground up, which is an incredible piece of technology. And this spread exposed us to a subset of the tech community who might not think that the new SFMOMA was for them. So a lot of the press was highlighting things about a museum that you wouldn't normally think of. So phase 3, post-opening. Post-opening for us right now, in about 10 days, we will hit our 6-month birthday. So we are still very new. And for me, active listening is really important. So using social. At SFMOMA, social media falls under the marketing department, and there's a lot of my job is sort of crisis communication. So people reaching out to us and complaining or asking questions, and it's important to take all of that feedback in, because if we really are all about the visitor, we have to implement what they're telling us, even on especially on our social channels, into putting that in the feedback loop and creating a better experience for them in general, because they are going to tell us what they want. They are going to tell us what they need, and it's up to us to listen to them. So we are, in this listening phase, we are listening to some unforeseen issues about our space or our programming being inclusive or not as inclusive. Accessibility is an issue that's coming up on social media that we really need to take a look at as an institution. So we're working to implement those changes that will allow us to mean more to more people and deliver on those brand principles that we said that we would. So some of the key takeaways for me, similar to my lovely colleagues, collaboration is super key, especially as a one-person social media team. You need to work with people in your institution to build content that is going to be engaging, and not all of your ideas are the best ideas. So you need people to bounce your ideas off of and collaborate on content that's going to make the most sense. That was really important. It's important to have balanced content. So I think there's a really nice balance of being able to talk about the when and the where, but the how and the why, which for us as museum people is the ultimate. Plan for what you can. I have a beautiful content calendar that is color-coded with acronyms, and it's all perfectly made for me, but what I learned during this process is that you need to really understand your audience and plan for what you can, have a post set up for every day, but be able to react and stay on your toes and react to what's happening in the digital landscape and within society every single day. And again, reiterating one more time, never stop listening. Listening to your audience through social is one of the most important things that you can do. It's your relationship to them. You're the voice of the museum, and in a lot of ways, you're the heart of the museum. Thank you.
So any questions for the bro at SFMOMA or the Whitney?
That was through an on-site post-visit survey, so we have iPads set up. So through an on-site post-visit survey, we actually have iPads set up that we've created a survey with the Moray Group. They actually work with institutions throughout the country, and that's actually where we got the data from too about the average visitor age and ethnic data as well. So that's available on their website. Yeah, it's an ongoing visitor study. We started it when we opened. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Thanks again.
Thank you.